Hello, it is the Royal Blue podcast brought to you by Liverpool Echo. I'm Ian Kroll, and I'm joined by the Echo's Everton FC reporter, Chris Beasley, and we're here to react to Sean Dyche's pre-match Manchester City press conference. We are live across YouTube and Facebook, so please remember to like, follow, and subscribe, and submit your questions and opinion so I can put those questions and opinion to Chris, and we'll try and get some answers for you. First off, Chris, how are you?
Okay, temperatures have plummeted, haven't they, today? And I've got the Echo weekly five-a-side tonight, so it'll be one where we have to run around just a little bit more.
Oh, well, it's not sticking by the looks of it, is it? So it looks like the pre-pitch check looks like it's gonna be okay. But yeah, there's obviously a big match on Saturday for Everton at the Etihad, and we've both just watched Sean Dyche's press conference. Our Everton FC correspondent Joe Thomas has been a Finch fan, but we watched it back in the office, and we're just going to kind of talk through what Dyche was said, what he was asked, and some of the things. So obviously Manchester City at the weekend, going to be a tough game. We haven't won a game in we've only had one win in 10 games. So it's going to be a tough ask against the Premier League champions.
Of course, yeah. I mean, there was a time, obviously, that Everton actually had a really good record against Manchester City in the period after they first got the money. Obviously, David Moyes famously said, didn't he? It was like taking a knife to a gunfight, trying to compete with City's riches in those early years after the United Arab Emirates group came in there and ploughed all their billions into the club. But Everton... plucky Everton obviously got a few decent results against them, but yeah, it's been a long time now. Not too sure just how long it's been now, but there's been a long sequence without a victory there, either at Goodison or the Etihad. So I mean, results like last season when they went there on New Year's Eve wasn't really anything expected of them. Kind of like the last hurrah for Frank Lampard's tenure, I think. The fact that Damari Gray dug him out with that spectacular equaliser and managed to get a share of the spoils. It was, I'm sure we take that, wouldn't we? I guess on Saturday.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned last time out, it was a 1-1 draw. It was a worldy, spectacular goal from Damari Gray. Probably papered over the cracks for Frank Lampard a little bit, but can we go there full of confidence, or do we go there with a bit of trepidation? Obviously, Manchester City, they seem to have found the form now. Are we looking just to get away from the Etihad unscathed with injuries, really?
Well, you don't want to be too negative about it, but I think that Sean Dyche does have he's got a tough record there with his time at Burnley. I think he's had a few hidings there, but with Everton, they don't tend to get turned over in terms of emphatic defeats. I mean, he says this now, and they're going into a Manchester City team who are improving all the time and scoring goals again. They do tend to sort of pick things up in the second half of the season as they're chasing these big prizes, as they tend to do. Of course, they're attempting to become the first club in English football history to win the league 4 years on the trot, so they've obviously got plenty to play for in that respect. But Everton don't tend, famous last words, to get thrashed by opponents, and it only tends to, there was the game at Villa, first away game of the season when they were well off it. A lot of that was self-inflicted wounds, and then the game at Wolves just before the turn of the year, and when they were well beaten at Molineux. And that seems to be at least a positive in what's obviously another tough season for Everton, and that they're at least competitive, even if they're not getting the results from games. They're never kind of blown away by opponents, but yeah, there's always the fear, isn't it, when you go to City, if they step things up again, that they're capable of hurting you. But yeah, I think another thing is that away from home, I mean, Everton been so much improved this season compared to the last couple of years when they really struggled on the road. I mean, ironically, of course, they need to be getting more wins at Goodison Park, but they don't have to go in trepidation. Of course, they'll be rank outsiders for this one. City be big favourites and rightly so. But there's no need to think that Everton can't be competitive in this fixture. And if they can't keep it tight for a lengthy amount of time, I mean, they could always have a chance. I think the fear is if they concede early and they're chasing the game for most of the afternoon.
Cool. So we're, mainly here to talk about Dyche and his press conference and what he was asked. But just before we get onto that then, Chris, just to remind people listening and watching on YouTube and Facebook to like, subscribe and share, and also submit your questions in, and we'll put the questions and we'll try and answer them. So, yeah, as always, no really standout line from Dyche's press conference. He was his usual self, but he did have player availability and injury updates, in which you've written a piece for the Liverpool Echo website on. So, no major comebacks other than we've got what have we got? We've got Anana and Coleman making good progress, really.
Yeah, he mentioned how Amadou Anana was kind of stepping things up again, in that famous phrase that he always tends to use back on the grass. But he said he wouldn't be available for this weekend. I guess that just shows you just how important it is to have Idrissa Gueye back. He obviously came back last weekend, and I thought, obviously question marks about the goals Everton conceded in Tottenham and his role in that going forward. He was actually pressing a lot further forward than he did, and considering he had been out since the Tottenham away game, it was a big plus to have him back and sort of firing on all cylinders. Yeah, but the big news, I guess, is that top scorer Abdoulaye Doucouré remains out. He's only played in one of Everton's last 10 matches. That was obviously the game against Aston Villa, the goalless draw. And it's probably no coincidence that Everton haven't had a Premier League win since he's been out. He's been so important to the way that Dyche's Everton play. Went off at Burnley on the 16th of December with hamstring precaution, and then that ended up being several weeks. Came back, to be fair, looked like no ill effects of it against Villa. He was up and down the pitch, actually had the ball in the net. It was flagged offside, but decent finish, showed DCL how it was done when his one-on-one chance. But yeah, he remains out. I mean, Dyche says that he is making progress and it is looking better, but he's certainly not going to be ready for this one. But maybe, I guess, obviously there's a bit of a gap then for the Crystal Palace game a week on Monday. You might just say, well, City's a free hit anyway. Perhaps, obviously leave him out for that one, and fingers crossed that he might be in contention to return against Palace for the home game.
Well, I was going to ask you that actually. Yeah. Even if Doucouré was fit, would you, whether you want to phrase it like this or not, risk him for Manchester City when there's probably a bigger game against Crystal Palace coming up a week Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, Dyche often used that phrase as need a risk and reward, and this is probably one, given that it's been such a niggly injury with him for the hamstring and one leg, and then the other one. You probably would err on the outside of caution this one and saying, yeah, of course, it'd be fantastic. The thought that Doucouré come and end Everton's winless streak against City would pop up with a goal. We played the percentages. It's probably better to try and give him that extra 9 or 10 days, whatever it is, and attempt to have him fit for Palace.
I mean, the stats don't lie, though, Chris. We haven't won a game in the league without Doucouré, have we? I know we've won that one in the Cup, as previously mentioned, but he's just pivotal to what Dyche wants to do and how Everton play. Yeah,
it's been incredible, really. If you think in those latter days of Frank Lampard, how he was just totally frozen out the squad. There'd obviously been a fallout there. I mean, Doucouré maintains he's not quite sure what happened. I'm sure he's got some kind of idea, but yeah, he was trained on his own, wasn't he? And then Dyche came back in when Dyche was first appointed. We thought, it's going to be 4-4-2. That's what he's predominantly played throughout his 9.5 years at Burnley. It wasn't. It was 4-5-1. But with Doucouré playing as the most advanced central midfielder, the fact that he's such a box-to-box player, he's able to get up and down that pitch and cover so much ground. And then he's shown that he's got an eye for a goal, so he has been pivotal. And then in the games that he's missed, Everton have really sort of struggled to sort of replace him. They certainly can't get a like-for-like replacement. I think, to be fair, Jack Harrison's probably done the best job of those who have sort of stepped into that kind of role, but he's a very sort of different player in that area. And yeah, as you said, the stats don't lie. It's just that one FA Cup replay against Palace when Andre Gomes scored with a free kick. So even that was obviously a dead ball situation, and they've not won a game otherwise. And that's what's that? What we're up to now, about 7 weeks and counting, or whatever it is. And after those 4 consecutive victories that they got in the Premier League, I mean, it's no surprise really that Luton have overhauled them in that time, and they're desperately needing a victory. But we all fear that it might take a little bit longer than Saturday to come.
Other players then, no Danjuma, no Gomez, not necessarily massive misses. Obviously, we would like them in the team. They've, haven't really played massive roles, but they have, featured in the last couple. So you could say a little bit of a miss, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think Andre Gomes done very well. I mean, obviously, frozen out for so long. Hadn't played since he got hauled off in the Crystal Palace 3-2 in the spring at the last home game of 21-22. Then he had the year out on loan at Lille in France, and then he came back at the Tottenham game just before Christmas. But yeah, he's carved out a little role for him, especially like I said, with Decore being outside. He was another one who sort of filled in that area in the advanced central midfield role. Because I think about Andre Gomez. You know, he gives me he makes me nervous when he's defending. I think his challenges often aren't the best, and he's always liable to get you into trouble in that respect. But going forward, he's much more easier on the eye, and he done really well. So yeah, it's disappointing that he's had yet another injury setback, and obviously I was down at Fulham when Dan Juma got hurt right at the end. I mean, that was a big night for him just before the transfer window closed. We all knew how he'd been very keen to get extra minutes, and that was an opportunity for him there. He probably should have scored in the first half, and he cut inside from the left, and his shot wasn't on target, and ended up getting hurt right at the end. So he's not been seen since. So, but yeah, especially with the squad being so threadbare, Dyche hasn't got a lot of bodies to call upon. So to have a couple of senior pros like that missing, it's always going to be damaging for the group.
And he, obviously, without wanting to give too much team news away, he did remain a little bit coy over Ananda and Coleman. Just kind of said that Ananda's back on the grass, Coleman is coming back, but we could really do with Ananda back in that team, certainly if Decore's not in there. I mean, I've been probably not as big as fan over the past couple of weeks and months, but I do value what he brings to the team. I always want him to do more, but he has been out injured, and it's obviously been felt.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with Onana. You're right there. I'd agree. You feel that he's got so much more in the locker. You think he's got so much potential. I mean, just such an imposing physical unit, but also clever as well in what he can do. You just think you want him to take those games by the scruff of the neck, and you think when you're playing a big side like Manchester City, big personality, big talent like him, it might be the kind of game that he'd flourish in and sort of rise to the occasion, really, sort of to test himself against the best players in the world and sort of show that he's at their kind of level. But yeah, he's had another one. He picked up a lot of injuries in games where he's had to have treatment, hasn't he? He's gone down a lot of times and received treatment. He kept sort of soldiering on, but then it got to a point where was it fluid on the knee, and he's been out. So yeah, he could be another potential big miss, but I'd imagine it'd probably be a similar sort of setup to the way they played against Tottenham, unless Sean Dyche wants to spring a surprise. But yeah, Seamus Coleman came off the bench against Spurs, and he played a part in Everton battling back for a point, and it's also great to have Seamus in and around the group, just what he brings both for a footballing sense and also obviously as the captain of the club and the sort of leadership qualities he displays.
And Dyche was kind of asked like Everton's approach to the game as opposed to just downright luck against the European champions.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough afternoon, Chris. But he kind of just said we need to play well and defend well. But obviously there's going to have to be probably an element of luck in there because City are going to have a lot of chances, aren't they?
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean that's not necessarily a problem when Everton. They can defend a lot of these chances, and it's not like they lose their heads. Obviously the Fulham game, Fulham carved out quite a few chances second half, but they kept cool heads and they were able to defend those. So, like I said, the problem is if one does go in early and then they're chasing the game, remains one of the Achilles heels under Dyche. Obviously, Everton infamously under Marco Silva never came from behind to win a Premier League game. That still remains the case a year on under Dyche now. As much as he's improved their mental resilience and got them made as a tougher unit, if they do go behind, they certainly struggle to. Obviously, they went behind twice against Tottenham and managed to salvage a draw, so I suppose that was a good result in the circumstances. But they still haven't come behind to win, and it could be a long afternoon if City were to get the noses in front early on. But I'm trying to remember back now to the game at the Etihad last season. Obviously, totally different manager and a setup that Everton didn't crumble there, they didn't capitulate there. They come back into the fray. But yeah, you'd imagine, the sort of team that City are, that they will carve out a lot of chances the longer the game goes on. We saw it at the game at Goodison in between Christmas and New Year. Everton obviously struck first blood there. Jack Harrison putting them ahead, and they were looking good for a good chunk of the game, and then City finally sort of ground them down. Obviously, there was a controversial penalty, Amadou Onana, with the handball, and that got them ahead. And then obviously they went on to get another one towards the end. But yeah, you'd imagine it'd be a busy afternoon for the Everton defenders and the goalkeeper Jordan Pickford, and just got to hope that they keep the cool and those calm heads can sort of see them out. Because I mean, I suppose the longer the game goes on, the more sort of the Everton belief would increase that they could get a result if they are managed to contain City.
Yeah, absolutely, and fingers crossed that is the case. We also thought this would be the case, but Sean Dyche has confirmed that he is going to be banned from the touchline. From basically what happened at the Tottenham game.
Yeah.
He spoke about that to the media at the press conference. He obviously clearly wasn't happy with the decision. He said stuff like emotions run high in games, and sometimes they might react accordingly. Sometimes managers might overreact, but he's not going to be on the touchline. Yeah. He's going to be in the stands at the Etihad. So how does that, obviously not. You'd have to see that as a negative impact rather than a positive one.
Yeah, if you watch Sean Dyche on the touchline, he is always a very demonstrative character. He is always gesturing. He's always urging his players on, offering them instructions all the time. He's a very proactive manager in that respect. So his presence will be missed. He spoke about the fact that he'll have an earpiece in and he'll be up in the stand, and obviously his trusted lieutenants Ian Woan and Steve Stone, they'll be down there on the touchline. They'll be relaying those messages. Actually, I remember a game pre-season that we went to Wigan Athletic when Sean Dyche wasn't even there. He was over with the other team that Everton had that day. I think we were watching the youngsters play at Tranmere, so it's not totally unprecedented. Obviously, it's a world of difference, a pre-season friendly at Wigan Athletic and a Premier League game against Manchester City as we're getting towards the business end of the season. So he will be missed, and he spoke about that. He felt that obviously the 3 yellow cards that he has picked up, which has given him his touchline ban, and you see Ian Woan, the assistant, he also served a touchline ban at West Ham early in the season for picking up 3 yellow cards. He felt he was reacting to what he felt were 3 bad decisions there, and he says, you're only human. He thought maybe just have a word with him. That would have been more of a sensible option. It's not like he's mentioned other managers might be like running up and down the touchline, celebrating goals wildly or whatever they get up to, these antics. And all he in his defence has done is spoken out about what he felt were bad decisions. Yeah. And he just thought there would have been a more sensible approach than just like Michael Oliver last weekend, just wading over and showing him the yellow card. There's got to be that sort of dialogue. If he said something out of turn, well, I suppose fair enough. But he in the heat of the battle, I'm sure there's plenty said on those touchlines, and you might get to a point where you're getting all kinds of managers getting banned if it carries on like this.
Well, he called it for the second foul on Beto against Tottenham, and he also added another dig. At VAR, the referees, whatever you want to describe, he says everyone knows Everton haven't had a penalty, so it's obviously common knowledge. Are we expecting a penalty against City? Surely not.
I'd think it'd be long odds, wouldn't it? Get one at City, maybe only longer odds get one at Anfield. I don't know for the derby, for the Cop end. I seem to remember actually on the other end of the pitch a game at Manchester City where Martin Stecklenburg saved 2 penalties, didn't he, for Everton? But in terms of Everton getting one, I mean the numbers don't add up. I did a piece this week because obviously rival fans of certain teams in particular might say, you've got to get into the opposition penalty area to get a penalty. As a tumbleweed goes past, see jibes like that. But we actually looked at it. Okay, I'm not saying that Everton are the most attacking team in the Premier League. They're clearly not. But we looked at the numbers, and they've actually had more touches in the opposition box than 7 other Premier League teams. So a third of the division there. So they are getting into those areas. They have had numerous penalty shouts. It doesn't stack up. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're the only team in the Premier League not to have been awarded a penalty. I'm not going into all conspiracy theories here, but it doesn't make sense that they haven't. I think 3/4 of the division now have possibly had at least 2 penalties, something like that, and I think Chelsea are on about 8 or something ridiculous. So, it doesn't make sense, does it? we kind of keep sort of banging on about this, because if we don't, and if Sean Dyche doesn't, who else is? You're not going to get anyone else sticking up for Everton. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And it certainly doesn't help with all that's going on about the Premier League at the moment. As we speak, we're obviously waiting on the results on Everton's 10-point appeal, how that's gone, and what sort of points to get back, if any of all of them, or something in between that, or some kind of other punishment. We'll all sort of wait and see where Everton stand. But yeah, it's just strange that they've had these string of decisions, not just VAR decisions going against them and stuff like that, but penalties not given. It's weird that at this point in the season they still haven't had one, and they're the only Premier League team who hasn't. I think it's is it something like 60 odd penalties been given in the Premier League this season. So
yeah. Everton haven't had one.
No.
Positive stuff then, Chris.
Yeah.
Idrissa Gana Gueye, fantastic performance against Spurs. Maybe something that we didn't expect, considering that he'd only just come back from the African Cup of Nations, and he had 1 day's training. I think he said he was given a down day, but he did play very well against Spurs, and bound to feature now against City as well. So how important is he going to be, especially if the likes of Anana is not going to make that team?
Yeah, I imagine he'd be in there in the thick of it. Just interesting how he actually plays away from home, because, like I mentioned earlier, he was doing a lot of high pressing against Tottenham, sort of getting a lot further forward than we used to see him with him. I wonder if he'll sort of adopt his more sort of traditional role, as sort of as a protector of the back four there, operating just in front of the penalty area, and just how the dynamic with him and James Garner works out. But yeah, it was impressive display, certainly going forward from Gay. But he's got that in his locker, highly experienced player, proven Premier League quality, and he hadn't had a lot of football. I mean, obviously he hadn't played for Everton since the Tottenham away game when he got injured just before Christmas. And then he'd gone to the Africa Cup of Nations with Senegal, who were the defending champions at the time, and hadn't played. He'd been injured at the start, so he was fit enough to take his place, but he wasn't picked because he was obviously coming back from that injury at the start, and he didn't have a lot of minutes in his locker in that tournament. So he's kind of come back fresh, really. He had a bit of a winter break of sort, maybe a bit of sunshine back in the Ivory Coast. So it'd been a light load for him, and he'd come back. So yeah, it is good that he's fit and firing again.
And he was kind of asked or quizzed, whatever way you want to look at it, on Calvert-Lewin. Obviously, last week, we all thought he got that first goal after many games without not scoring. I think it was 16.
Yeah, it's now up to 17.
Up to 17 now. So, Harrison stole that from him, whatever way you want to look at it. Unlucky, but again, Dyche, backed him again. He said his performances have been good enough, makes vital contributions to the team. Are we still along the same trajectory with Calvert-Lewin? I think we're all in agreement at this moment in time, whether you've changed your mind or not. He probably still is the better option. Over Beto.
Yeah, I mean, if that had just been given, it would have just been a weight off his shoulders. I mean, it's easy for us to say, but it's kind of an anomaly, really. But it will play on his mind, of course. I mean, he thought he'd ended the duck. The goal was awarded to him at the time. And obviously him and Harrison are kind of in the same area, and then eventually they've had another look at it and said, oh, well, it's Jack Harrison's goal. I think Jack Harrison probably didn't even want it in the circumstances. He'd rather give it to Calvert-Lewin, give it to his number 9 who needs a goal.
Probably felt a bit embarrassed.
Yeah, so they were, pair of them were kind of laughing at the time, and you could see there was, I wonder which one this is going to come down or whatever. But yeah, he must be absolutely kicking himself, Calvert-Lewin, because as much as it's easy to say, oh, well, he's getting in the right positions and he's doing well or whatever, it will play on his mind. He won't like the fact that he's gone 17 games without scoring. I suppose the only sort of positive thing is, it's an interesting number, that 17, because that's the total number of games he played all of last season and the season before. He only played in 17 Premier League games those 2 seasons, or was it 17 total? So the fact that he's actually there to stay fit and he's relying upon him, and he's not picking up those niggles, that's got to be a positive. That okay, he's solved his fitness issues now, and hopefully those goals can come again, because he is proven quality at this level. He's not necessarily prolific, but he's one of only 4 players to have scored 50 Premier League goals for Everton, unlike Romelu Lukaku, Tim Cahill and Duncan Ferguson. So he's obviously in good company there, and it's a bit of a rare accomplishment. So they will come, but it just obviously would be nice if they come sooner rather than late, so it's not playing on his mind and get into the rhythm. Because when he wasn't scoring at the start of this run. Everton was still winning the games. It's not like they needed him to score. All of those 4 wins in a row were achieved without a Calvert-Lewin goal. To get the win at Forest, the first one of that sequence was achieved without Calvert-Lewin in the team. So it's not like it's vital for Everton to win for him to be scoring goals, but it just would help, wouldn't it, having the number 9 sort of confident again. And also when he does score, he tends to get them in batches, gets a bit of a flurry as a purple patch. So you'd hope that there'd be a few more on the horizon.
I mean, he was also asked about, just away from football matters, he was also asked about the points deduction appeal, but absolutely no point in asking Sean Dyche about that, because he couldn't give us anything. He knew absolutely nothing about it. So we will quickly move on from that, because we're not expecting a decision on that imminently. It's going to be over the next couple of days, if not, late into next week, isn't it? So back to football on matters, and he had very much praise for Branthwaite and James Tarkowski. Obviously, Branthwaite scored the last-minute equalising goal against Spurs last week. It was I weigh in Goodison.
Yeah,
I watched it on the telly, so it seemed like it was an agonising wait for those in the grounds. But I think if you watched it back on the TV, I think you probably knew about 30 seconds before that it was a goal, because you could clearly see, and they gave it. But Branthwaite now adding goals to his game, which from a set piece, something that we talked about, Everton haven't scored enough set pieces, and then we get 2 kind of in one game last week. We'll touch on the set pieces as well, but just on Branthwaite, just good to see him getting up there and getting a goal. Yeah,
I mean, typical Dyche. If you notice, if you ask him a question saying, has X, Y, or Z done well, he'll say, yeah, but then so has A, B, and C. That's a typical response from Dyche, isn't it? But it's all about, obviously, that team ethic, and it's not about individuals. But yeah, I mean, it was an incredible moment for him. It's a lovely moment, as you mentioned. The weight. I mean, it's bad enough for us in the press box in Goodison. We've only got 2 television screens in the whole press box. I mean, a lot of these grounds now, you get obviously an individual monitor each. So obviously, wait until the big stadium move before we get improvements in that score. So it's often difficult to see those replays. And but you could see from the footage, obviously, the free kick from James Garner come off Romero's head, so it couldn't be offside in that respect. I thought Branthwaite did really well. He was strong, he was brave. He wanted that more than their keeper. The opportunity, he might have banged into the post as well.
Who, by the way, moaned all afternoon.
No, yeah. He's a good goalkeeper, but he doesn't like you could see with the crosses, stuff like that. He sort of moaned about the first goal. I think he said he'd been fouled there as well, or something like that. So he was whinging, wasn't he? He didn't like it, but I don't think I'd like it, to be fair. Jared Branthwaite was running at me like that, but he's an absolute monster, isn't he? But because of that, you'd like to think he'd be scoring more goals in those sort of areas. What is he, 6'5", absolute unit, young lad, absolutely total fit, top of his game, confident. Let's hope that can become more of a regular feature, because I think the only one he got previous was at Chelsea a couple of years before, so that was his first Goodison goal. Great moment for him, for the youngster, and hopefully more of that. But in terms of set pieces, I think it was a crucial moment, because it actually meant that Everton scored more goals from set pieces this season than they have from open play. So it just shows you what an important weapon that is for Everton. Only Arsenal, I think, had scored more now from set pieces. And so they should be. I think they're the biggest team in the Premier League in terms of the average height.
Doesn't feel like that at all, does it?
Yeah, I suppose as Big Ange said afterwards, he said it's not like they scored 2 from 2. They have maybe 30 set pieces or whatever. So it's not like they're doing it all the time. But yet it's obviously they're big moments, and you do feel a bit like Onana. They should be doing more. They've got people who can deliver the ball into those areas. Get Garner with that free kick, or Dwight McNeil from the corner kick. So they'd have to see Big Tarky's head as well. I mean, there's a few in there. Amadou Onana, another thing we should be saying about him, he should be scoring more goals despite his height. He has scored headed goals, but you just think, he could improve his heading technique as well. So there's a few likely candidates in there to get the end of it. Of course, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, when he's on his game, he's probably as good as anyone, any centre forward in the Premier League in terms of aerial ability. So there's plenty of options in there, and they could be crucial between now and the end of the season. Just how many goals Everton can get from set pieces, because obviously, I've said Arsenal are 1, Everton are 2, I think Luton Town are 3. So they, as we saw before at Goodison, they can do it as well. So it might be a bit of not a penalty shootout, but something of a bit of a set piece shootout between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, it could be an interesting one. Excuse me. So just on the Dyche not wanting to praise individuals too much, he was also asked about Jordan Pickford, who got praise from the journalist who asked him questions, 9 clean sheets, but basically Dyche just put that down to the fantastic defensive unit that, Everton seem to have, bonded together really. I mean, we know Pickford's qualities, but you probably would say that, that the five as a whole have been, top quality, this season. Certainly Mikalenko, I know the right back, full back position is always, swapped and changed a little bit, but the consistent four with Tarkowski, Brandtwaite, Mikalenko and Pickford, they have been fantastic this season.
Yeah, it's been a good base, as you say, other than the right back, which has been a movable feast. Ashley Young's been there most of the season, Nathan Patterson, Coleman dipping in and out, but yeah, the rest of them have been a real solid base, and Mikalenko deserves a lot of credit as well there, because he's probably, in terms of, obviously Brandtwaite's come from nowhere and come back from a loan spell, but in terms of people who were around last season, Mikalenko's surely the biggest sort of improvement on the actual levels from where they were last season, which is interesting given that Ashley Young is, and probably the best left back in Premier League history as his coach for the first half of last season, but still couldn't improve him. But it's only when Sean Dyche and his team are coming he's improved. But the unit as a whole, they're obviously all doing well, and they sort of know each other's games now and are playing as a unit. But I think still Jordan Pickford has had to make quite a lot of top draw saves at various points there. He has got a good defence playing in front of him, and they are solid, but he's still been pretty busy in a lot of games. I was down at that game at Fulham. He said that save that he made there was routine, but I'm not too sure. It looks a bit better than that for me. And how many times has he done that? Even against Tottenham, obviously, last weekend, there was about 3, wasn't there? One-on-one, stuff like that, we had to save him. So, yeah, I think it was fair enough. So he's the best non-Brazilian goalkeeper in the Premier League, and I don't know, he still gets all this stick wherever he goes from various different fan bases, but hopefully that just means he remains Everton's Jordan Pickford for a long time to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been, a fantastic sign, and it's just disappointing that we haven't been able to turn, probably his quality of goalkeeping into, the results that he probably deserves, and it has been tough. But Lewis Dobbin also brought up in the press conference, a player I've kind of like called for more game time over the past couple of weeks, and maybe he's leaning towards that sort of thing. How close is he to starting? Again, Dyche very coy, didn't want to give too much away, but how close is he to getting more game time, do you think?
Yeah. Well, Dan Juma is obviously injured now. I mean, he's been getting ahead of Dan Juma at times, but with Dan Juma injured, maybe we'll get a few more opportunities. He certainly did well when he came on against Tottenham and getting the crosses in there, the chance for Chimiti that he fashioned as well. He's done really well. You got to remember he was only playing League One last season, and when he came in at the start of the season, you thought, well, he's a sort of player from that level, in that he's athletic and he'll get at the defence, but a bit raw. But he's improved. He's got obviously that first goal against Chelsea before Christmas, and he's looked lively at times. I think Dyche isn't the one. I mean, he has blooded youngsters. Obviously, he gave Dwight McNeil his chance in a similar position at Burnley as a youngster there. Obviously, fewer resources there, so it's not like he's averse to bringing youngsters through. And I think it is Dobbin 20s. He might even turn 21 now, so he's not not a kid. But I just wonder that he does like to keep that settled side, so maybe not in the starting lineup unless they get a couple of bad injuries or whatever. But he's certainly knocking on the door, and he's certainly got scope for regular minutes coming off the bench in the weeks to come, unless, like I said, they do get injuries and he decides to swap the side around. But he doesn't tend to do that, does he?
Before we finish off then, Chris, just reference again to Dyche his touchline ban, and he kind of like said he wanted more tolerance from the referees. We understand that referees, or he kind of suggested he understand that referees make bad decisions, but sometimes managers can overreact and make bad decisions as well. You kind of touched off on it before with the technical area, but he just wants consistency overall. When you see managers who running out of the technical area after the team scored a last minute goal and nothing's ever happening to them, that obviously is a frustration for all, not just Dyche. It's a frustration for everyone. you know, you'd go as far as to say if Dyche ran out of his technical area and after a last minute goal, he would be punished, because that just seems to be the way of the wind at this moment in time. But does he have a case with regards to, you know, the referees needing to be more tolerant?
Yeah, I think it's with everything, isn't it? You just want that consistency with decisions, and you don't tend to get that. I mean, obviously there was that infamous decision. Infamous moment in the Merseyside derby when Jurgen Klopp didn't just run out of his area, ran into the centre circle, and I think he did get punished for that. He got a fine for that. It's interesting, you know, with how Klopp reacted like that, and then would later on go on about how the derby match was Everton's World Cup final. I think that grated with a few blues after, you know, what was potentially a very dangerous move by Klopp in a high profile game like that, a last minute winner running onto the pitch. So yeah, the Dyche tends to sort of keep grounded in that respect. You don't see him doing cartwheels on the touchline. I think even the Bournemouth game last season, you know, he wasn't running around like a madman when Decore scored or anything like that. He keeps his cool, and that's one of his plus points, in that he sort of remains on a level. Not that he's any less passionate, or it doesn't mean anything. You know, he's just good at sort of containing himself in that respect. But what he will do, you know, challenge decisions, and if something doesn't go his way, I suppose he's do it respectfully. You know, it's not a problem. But obviously, he picked up these 3 yellow cards now, and you know, it is a problem if he starts having to be in the stands for any sort of prolonged period, or if it happens again. So yeah, you just want that, like everything, referees just want that consistency, so you know where you stand in terms of decisions.
Just finally then, Chris, we'll finish off now, but you know, kind of the whole press conference was based around the City game, and I think Dyche, as a realist, he did suggest that he was hoping that City would have a bit of a soft performance, a bit of an off day, and he said maybe, you know, it was more about containing Manchester City rather than going on the offensive. You know, that seems to be the suggestion, but obviously, you know, he's a positive manager. He is going to look to score goals as well. You know, whether that's, you know, just to nick a 1-0. But how do you see it? Are we, you know, have we got a chance?
Yeah, he's always got a chance, but I think Dyche is right in what he says, that Everton have to play well, and City have to have an off day. If those two factors don't combine, then we're not going to see a positive result. We saw at Goodison, I've mentioned already, just after Christmas, Everton were ahead, and they were ahead for a little while there, weren't they? And still wasn't enough. Ultimately, you've just got to hope. I mean, there's been times when we've gone there before against very good City sides, and they have managed to result. I mean, it's obviously been a long time since they've got to win there. It's got to happen at some point, but it's not like I'm going to be putting the mortgage on that one for Saturday. But I think that they tend to be in games most of the time, so the hope is that they can keep it tight. If you get into the second half and it's still relatively close, even if it's only like, say, like 1-0 down or 1 goal deficit or whatever, you've got to hope that they could come back like they did against Tottenham and get something out of the game. You just don't want to be obviously chasing it if they come out the breaks out the track quickly. The plan has to be containment for as long as possible.
You gonna give a prediction?
Should I be positive then and say that a repeat of last season 1-1?
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty positive, that, isn't it?
That is very positive.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 2-0 defeat.
Okay.
I do apologise to you and to those listening, but I'm a realist. But that doesn't mean to say that I don't want Everton to win. Obviously not. Okay, Chris, we'll call it time there. Just a reminder to people watching live on YouTube and Facebook to like, follow and subscribe to the Facebook page and YouTube channel. We'll be back with plenty of Everton content across all of our social platforms and the website. And Chris, you and Joe are going to be at the Etihad as well. You want to maybe just a little touch on that, what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, obviously a bit of an early one for us. Really leaving around 9 o'clock for that one. The FC obviously the live blog there, and we'll have our usual. It's become a regular feature now. Our little Facebook live once the teams have dropped there, and then obviously we have the verdict from Joe and the player ratings. That I'm sure that everyone he loves to disagree with me coming up afterwards, and the analysis, all the managers' quotes. So yeah, be a busy day, but that's and obviously becoming a regular feature now. The Facebook live once the teams are dropped. So hour before kick-off, get on the Echo website and you can listen to the Pearls of Wisdom from Joe and myself.
Fantastic. So there'll be plenty more on the Manchester City game with reaction to come Saturday afternoon. So yeah, this has been the Royal Blue Podcast. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.